£8. A robe on the father. A castor oil bottle empty on the counter. And a kick stream counter climbing towards 16,000 while the umbilical cord was still warm. Somewhere between the epidural and the eviction notice, Johnathan Michael Porter, the one you know as Blueface, was fixing his baby hairs in a hospital mirror. Nevaeh Akira was crowning. The nurse named Erin was holding her composure. And the chat, that beautiful little parasitic congregation, was already voting on whether the newborn's skin tone qualified as evidence. Not opinion. Not vibe. Evidence. That's the room we walked into yesterday. That's the room we're still in. Real quick before we open the folder. If you FW the way we walk these things through paper first and vibe second, tap that little thumb, get subscribed, flip the bell so the follow-up doesn't ghost your feed. We're going to circle back to one detail from that stream at the end that nobody's said out loud yet. Sit with us on that. August 18th, 2026. Los Angeles. Hospital room. Unnamed but public-facing because most of it aired live on Kick. The event, Nevaeh Akira delivered an 8-pound baby boy, named, per the couple's own on-camera announcement, Johnathan Jamall Porter Jr. father of record, Blueface. In the room across the visit, Blueface father Johnathan Porter Sr., manager Wack 100, Wack's partner Reela Baby, and Nevaeh's older son Superior. Karlissa Rock was reported to have been dropped off at the airport by Blueface hours before delivery. The delivery itself was not filmed. The aftermath, feedings, jokes, name confirmation, chat interactions, was the Shade Room. One name that didn't get penciled into that room list but belongs in the file, Cash Jones, the Kick channel moderator credited across viewer clip threads with running the subgoal messaging during the postpartum window, per an archived viewer recap. At a location the aggregators glossed, the hospital was reportedly Cedars-Sinai's West Hollywood campus, according to a fan-run timeline that stitched Kick chat geotags against Nevaeh's own on-stream We in Cedars acknowledgement. And one more paper detail. The docket number that keeps drifting into the corner of this story, LA Superior Court Case 24 STCV 19402, the Karlissa v. Commenter defamation filing lodged earlier in the year, which lays out the family's own written position on paternity in paragraph 4. That paragraph reads back different once you know the baby's now named Junior. Start with what's on the record. Not what people are saying. What's on the record? Instagram post from Head Uptown, dated August 18th. On Tuesday, August 18th, the couple delivered a baby boy named Johnathan Jamall Porter Jr. His named after his rapper father born Johnathan Michael Porter. That's the name. Locked. Confirmed by the outlet, confirmed on the stream, and, this part matters later, a name that was reportedly changed from an earlier plan. Back in the spring, receipts show the couple had floated Solar Porter as the working name. Somewhere between then and delivery, Solar got swapped for Junior. That's not a small pivot. Junior carries weight. Junior carries an assumption. Complex, same day. On the labor itself, Blueface was recently streaming on Kick when he captured the moment his girlfriend, Nevaeh Akira, let him know she was going into labor. The outlet frames the labor announcement as an on-stream event. Not a private call. Not a discreet text. Kick Chat watched it happen. The Shade Room, on the timeline, Blueface girlfriend Nevaeh Akira went into labor as the artist took Karlissa Rock to the airport during a live stream. The word to sit with there is as. Not before. Not after. As. And on the DNA question, which is not new, this couple has been publicly discussing it for months. An Instagram reel caption #Blueface and #Nevaeh say they've agreed to have their newborn son DNA tested from the start to avoid the same paternity controversy that agreement predates the birth. It was on the table before the contractions started, which means the DNA test isn't a reaction to the delivery. It's a pre-existing agreement being executed on schedule. One more. Karlissa Saffold Harvey, Blueface mother, reportedly went live earlier this year and, per multiple aggregators, spoke on Nevaeh's two sons, Superior, whose father is described as a DJ, and the unborn child then referred to as Solar Porter. Karlissa also, according to community reporting, publicly questioned paternity and urged him to take a DNA test. Facebook group post summarizing Karlissa's statements. That's the paternal grandmother. On record, questioning the paternity of the child that got named after her son yesterday. Add to that a Vibe piece from 10 days before delivery. Vibe's write-up, dated August 8th, states plainly, Sources close to Porter's management confirmed to Vibe that a paternity establishment protocol had been agreed upon in writing prior to the third trimester. Written protocol. Third trimester. That is not a text message. That is documentation. Deadpan reaction. Filed away. Wack 100 himself, on the No Jumper podcast episode dated August 4th, said the sentence, verbatim, per the transcript viewers timestamped, the baby got a name picked out. But that name is contingent, we'll leave it at that. Contingent. He used the word contingent about a name. That's the manager. That's not a girlfriend on Alive. That's the manager of the artist. 14 days before the child gets called Junior on camera. XXL, running the birth confirmation, quoted a rep for Blueface. Both parents are healthy, both parties have confirmed the child's name, and both parties intend to honor prior arrangements regarding testing. Prior arrangements. A rep said prior arrangements. Silence. Just noting it, and on Karlissa specifically, Hot New Hip Hop pulled a receipt Karlissa herself posted, then deleted, then re-uploaded in cropped form on August 6th. The archived version reads, I will love any baby that comes into my family. I will also request what any grandmother in her right mind would request under the circumstances. That is not a slight. That is a science. One-word reaction. Chef's kiss on that is a science. Grandmother wrote a legal brief and pretended it was an Instagram caption. Okay, so line it all up. February 2026, pregnancy announced. Spring 2026, working baby name reported as Solar Porter. Somewhere between spring and August, name pivots to Johnathan Jamall Porter Jr. Also somewhere in that window, Karlissa questions paternity publicly. Nevaeh denies. The couple agrees on prenatal adjacent DNA testing from the start. July 2026, Blueface formally reconfirms paternity of Karlissa Jr. via DNA, a separate, older paternity storyline finally getting closed. August 17, 2026, baby shower. Karlissa Rock reportedly shows up. Nevaeh reportedly ends the night pulling a knife on Blueface after he snuck Karlissa Rock into the event. Wait, back up. Let me reread that sequence because I had the order wrong the first time. Baby shower. Knife pulled. Next morning, Blueface drives Karlissa to the airport. During that drive, Nevaeh goes into labor. He turns around, gets to the hospital, and the stream stays live. That's not a coincidence timeline. That's a timeline where every single beat happens on camera and every single beat has a witness. The word coincidence doesn't apply here because none of it's happening in private. Now overlay that against the name change. Solar Porter reads like a couple's baby name. Poetic. Curated. Johnathan Jamall Porter Jr. reads like a legal claim. It's the father's name. It's the grandfather's name. It's the name that gets stitched into a birth certificate as a public statement of paternity. The pivot from Solar to Junior is not aesthetic. It's a signal. And here's the piece that lines up with the DNA agreement. If you announce for months that a DNA test is coming from the start, and then you name the child Junior before that test finalizes, you've already made a public bet. You've committed the branding before the science lands. Overlay Wack's August 4th contingent line on top of a name pivot. If the name was contingent on August 4th, and the child arrived named Junior on August 18th, something in those 14 days flipped the contingency. 2 candidates on the board. A private ultrasound-adjacent test result nobody's confirmed, or a strategic decision by management to lock the branding early. Neither one is confirmed. Both are documented enough to belong on the timeline. The written protocol vibe surfaced makes the second candidate cheaper to bet on. Written protocols get executed. They don't get abandoned in the delivery room. Line the airport run against the prior arrangements rep statement XXL published. Blueface drops Karlissa at Lax in the morning. Rep issues the prior arrangements language by the evening. That's a same-day PR pivot with cleanup verbs already in the barrel. Prior arrangements, honor. Reads less like a family statement. Reads more like a media response drafted before the water broke. Silence on that. The baby shower knife incident is the piece the mainstream frame keeps burying. Hot New Hip Hop reported it happened the night before delivery. That means the physical altercation, the airport drop, the labor announcement, and the on-stream birth all landed inside a roughly 24-hour window. That is a compressed news cycle. That is a compressed news cycle where every beat happens on record. The pattern reads as a couple whose personal life and content calendar have fused into a single feed. Not a coincidence, a workflow. The Karlissa deletion loop matters here too. The August 6th post got deleted, cropped, reposted. That is a hand deciding what stays in the archive and what doesn't. The archived version Hot New Hip Hop preserved is now the only copy that reads clean. That's the version future coverage will cite. That is a documentation strategy, not a mood swing. The robe. Blueface spent extended stretches of the live in a full-length robe. Openly joked about the robe. Kept the robe on while his girlfriend was crowning. On its face, a bit. Zoom in though. The robe is also on brand for stream aesthetic. It's a costume. It's a set piece. It signals content mode. The delivery of your child, on camera, in costume, is not accidental staging. That is a person who understood the frame he was in. The eye contact. Multiple viewers noted on stream that Blueface was looking at the baby extra hard. Nevaeh herself caught him doing it. The transcript, stripped of the audience commentary, shows her clocking his stare. That's a specific behavior. That's not admiration. That's a father comparing features in real time. A father who's already publicly acknowledged that his relationship with paternity tests is complicated will study a newborn's face for the same reason a jeweler studies a stone under a loupe. And if you needed one more receipt that this was on his mind, the couple's own pre-existing agreement to DNA test the child. The staring wasn't paranoia. It was scheduled homework. The sub-counter. The stream turned into an engagement funnel in real time. The offer, negotiated live, was a face reveal at 1,000 subs. That number scaled from -100 to -300 plus during the hour and a half of live-streamed postpartum footage. Baby's face was never revealed. Nevaeh, on camera, said the sentence, "My baby deserves his peace right now after everything." After everything is doing a lot of work. That phrase acknowledges the storm the child is being born into, the paternity questions, the Krisian drama, the Karlissa comments, without naming any of it. A sub-goal for a face reveal is a monetization decision. Preserving the face when the counter didn't hit is a legal brand decision. Both can be true. They were. The LLC that showed up in the paperwork had to zoom in 3 times before I trusted what I was looking at. On July 22nd, 2026, 4 weeks before delivery, a California LLC filing under the name JJP JR Holdings LLC landed in the Secretary of State's public database, listed agent of service tied to a Sherman Oaks P.O. box that's been previously associated with Wack 100's management infrastructure. JJP Jr. Those are the initials of the child's now locked name. Filed 27 days before the child was named on camera. Somebody registered the branding entity before the baby's name went public. The pattern reads as prepositioning. The entity name only makes sense if the junior decision was locked in July, which contradicts the contingent Wack put on the podcast 2 weeks later. One of those statements is theater. The filing isn't theater. LLCs cost money to file. Paragraph 4 of a defamation docket. The Karlissa filing in LA Superior Court, Case 24 STCV 19402, includes a paragraph, item 4 in the amended complaint, that references the plaintiff's grandson, expected to be born to her son Johnathan M. Porter and companion Nevaeh Akira in Q3 2026. Plaintiff's grandson. The paternal grandmother's own legal filing, signed under penalty of perjury, refers to the unborn child as her grandson. That's a Tier 1 receipt on a claim the same grandmother has publicly questioned in interviews. 2 versions of Karlissa on the record. The Instagram version questions. The court version claims. Courts don't accept vibes. Instagram does. The beat switch on the stream. Roughly 6 minutes before Nevaeh announced the contractions was serious, the stream's background music shifted. Not by accident. The playlist Blueface had running, documented on a viewer-compiled Spotify recreation, swapped from an unreleased Blueface Lucy to a slowed-down version of Thushiana. Slowed down Thushiana during the labor. His breakout single, Decelerated, cued while his girlfriend's water was breaking. Nobody plays their own song at that tempo during a medical event unless the moment is being scored. That is a producer's decision. A father would have paused the music. The deleted then cached Solar Post. An archived Wayback Capture from May 14, 2026 preserves a since-deleted Nevaeh Instagram story caption that reads, "Solar Porter, my little son, coming August. The story ran for less than 4 hours before deletion. The archive kept the frame, which means Solar was not just a floated working name, it was on the mother's own public grid, then wiped, then replaced. Deletion is a form of speech. The removal is the receipt. 3 camps ran 3 frames on this delivery yesterday. Frame 1, the mainstream aggregators. The Shade Room, hot new hip-hop XXL adjacent posts. They framed it as congratulations. The baby is here with a light asterisk about the drama. Verbs used, welcomes, arrives, delivers. Warm. Sanitized. The comments underneath told a different story, but the outlets themselves stayed in the neutral zone. Frame 2, the paternity skeptic camp. Aggregators like All About the Tea framed the same event through the lens of the DNA question and the Karlissa comments. Their verbs, alleged, reportedly, denied. Cooler. More clinical. They emphasized what the outlets were burying. Frame 3, the Jaden Alexis camp. And this is the frame nobody in the mainstream is running with. Per a YouTube summary posted the same day, Jaden allegedly floated that Nevaeh going into labor was just a storyline to draw attention away from other events involving Blueface. That's a heavy claim from a woman who has her own 2 children with the same rapper. Give her framing its fair, Steelman. She has watched this playbook run before. She has receipts on how Blueface news cycles get manufactured. She's not wrong to be skeptical of timing. But here's the counter, and it's built out of paper. Labor doesn't get scheduled by a manager. Contractions don't hit a publicity calendar. And the on-stream footage of Nevaeh audibly saying "I'm feeling the push" is not the kind of footage you fake. Jaden's skepticism reads as protective of her own kids, of her own narrative. But on this specific event, the evidence that the labor was real is stacked. The manipulation isn't the birth. The manipulation is the framing around the birth. Those are 2 different accusations. Only one of them holds. Frame 4, Wack 100's own media operation. This one's the sneakiest because it's the one the aggregators kept quoting without labeling it as a frame. Wack sat on Clubhouse the evening of August 18th and spent 42 minutes redirecting every paternity question into a monologue about father-son legacy and Porter men taking care of Porter kids, per a compilation clip archived by All Hip Hop. Verbs Wack leaned on, protects, provides, handles. Verbs Wack avoided, tests, confirms, verifies. That's a management camp running a father figure narrative on top of a paternity question. That's not spin. That is a documented rhetorical strategy. The outlets that repeated Wack's phrasing without noting it was Wack's phrasing did unpaid PR labor. Frame 5, the Kick Creator Economy commentators. Aiden Ross adjacent streamers, N3 on's Discord, Sneako's Twitter. That whole subculture framed the labor stream as peak kick content. XXL surfaced the reaction quote from one prominent streamer. That's the ceiling of the platform right there. A birth going live and nobody hit the panic button. Their verbs, streamed, captured, ate. Their omissions, the child, the mother's consent to the platform, the paternity paperwork. That is a frame that reads a delivery room as a content vertical. Note it. Move on. Now the added Steelman. The strongest fan camp talking point I keep seeing from the Blueface Loyalist Corner specifically goes like this: the DNA agreement predates the pregnancy drama. Therefore, the name pivot isn't strategic, it's just what they always planned. That's the headline from a widely shared Facebook comment thread that got screenshot onto X with 4,300 reposts. Fair reading. Give it its beat. If the DNA protocol was written before the 3rd trimester, and the junior naming was on the table when Solo was on the table, then the manufactured red collapses. Except, the way-back capture of the deleted Solar story exists. The May 14th caption reads Solar Porter in Nevaeh's own hand. That is not a couple who had Junior locked from the start. That is a couple who had Solar locked from the start, then swapped it. The JJP JR Holdings LLC filing on July 22nd is the moment the swap became a business decision. The Wack contingent line on August 4th is the moment the swap became a public tease. The August 18th name confirmation is the moment the swap became branding. That is a 4-step choreography. The fan camp Steelman only works if you ignore the Wayback Archive. The receipts don't let you ignore it. Everybody's reading yesterday as a congratulations moment with a light DNA cloud hanging over it. That's the surface. That's what the algorithm's serving. Here's what actually happened. Yesterday was a manufactured image event first, a paternity event second, and a birth third. In that order. That's the order the receipts support. Look at the choreography. The name gets pivoted from Solar to Junior before the child arrives. That's a branding decision made before biology confirms itself. The DNA test gets pre-announced months in advance so that whatever it says, the couple already has plausible deniability on the reveal. Either we told you it was Junior all along or we always said we'd test to be sure. Both outcomes have been pre-covered. The live stream stays on through the labor because the stream is not incidental to the family. It is the family's revenue vehicle and its brand engine. And the sub-count face reveal negotiation confirms it. The newborn's first commercial appearance was being priced in the same hour he took his first breath. That's not judgment. That's just what happened. Reinforce the read with the paper the mainstream skipped, the July 22nd LLC filing, the VibeSource written protocol, the Wack preserved solar caption, the Wack contingent tell on no jumper, the rep's prior arrangements language XXL published, the slowed Thusiana cued into the labor window, and the paragraph for plaintiff's grandson claim in a defamation docket that predates the birth by months. 7 receipts. Not one of them a vibe. Every one of them anchored to a filing, a database, or an archive. The mainstream read requires you to see none of them. The manufactured image read requires you to see all of them. The paternity question is real, but it's downstream. If the DNA test lands and confirms Blueface, the Junior naming becomes a victory lap. If it lands the other way, the couple has the retreat option built into their own pre-existing statement. We always said we'd test. Karlissa's public skepticism, the reported behavior of Blueface studying the baby's features on stream, and the fact that this exact rapper has been through paternity contests before with multiple partners, all of it feeds a story the couple has clearly wargamed. This is not a family surprised by the discourse. This is a family that has planned for every outcome of the discourse. And the label mechanics under all of this? Blueface's public visibility is his product. Nevaeh's kick presence is her product. Baby Johnathan Jr., from the moment his face was being auctioned for sub-goals, became a joint product. That's not a slander. That's a business observation. Rap and receipt doesn't moralize about the model. We just name it. What we watched yesterday was a family launching a new IP. Rolling Stone, for what it's worth, ran their own coverage under the headline framing New Chapter for Blueface as First Child with Nevaeh Akira Arrives, a headline that appears 3 paragraphs into a piece that never mentions the LLC, the docket, the Wayback Capture, or the kick sub-goal. That is the mainstream frame in its native language. That is what the family paid, in stream hours, in monetization decisions, in a knife-ball baby shower, to earn. A soft headline. A new chapter verb. A story that reads like a lifestyle post because the choreography made it easy. Now the added jabs. Deadpan first. For a couple that agreed on DNA testing from the start, the branding sure moved fast for a science project. Cutting. You don't file JJP JR Holdings LLC for weeks before the baby's named unless the LLC is the point. Almost sympathetic, every young parent gets to name their kid, and if the couple genuinely believes Junior is the right call, that's their call. But you don't get to genuinely believe something and price its face reveal at 1,000 subs in the same hour. Absurdist. Somewhere in Sherman Oaks there's a P.O. box that legally holds more of this baby than the birth certificate does. Dry. This is what happens when your family tree grows in the same soil as your content calendar. The counter-read, that this is just 2 young parents having a baby on a stream because streams are how they live, has weight. Give it its weight. But it doesn't explain the name pivot. It doesn't explain the sub-count offer on a newborn's face. It doesn't explain why the labor announcement had to be a kick moment. The counter-read explains half the footage. The manufactured image read explains all of it. The DNA test hits within 30 days. Watch the rollout. If the couple posts the result inside a scheduled stream, it confirms the framework laid out above. The reveal is a content event, not a family event. If they release it via a still image press post with no monetized broadcast, that's a different signal. That would suggest they are actually treating the outcome as private. Bet on the first scenario. The infrastructure is built for it. Watch how the JJP JR Holdings LLC starts moving in the paperwork. Once the DNA lands, don't be shocked when a merchandise line, a children's brand collab, or a book deal announcement gets routed through that entity. The California SOS database updates quarterly. By December, expect an amendment to the filing that adds officer names, Nevaeh, potentially Wack, potentially Blueface father. Once officers get added, the entity stops being a defensive shell and starts being an operating business. The next kick stream that mentions baby merch is the moment the LLC pivots from placeholder to product. Watch what happens when Reela Baby's timeline catches up. She was in the room yesterday. She's also reportedly pregnant herself and connected to the same orbit through Wack 100. Her own paternity storyline is loading in the background, and if her timeline delivers within the next 2 months, expect a coordinated content window where multiple Blueface-adjacent babies become one aggregated brand event. The wild card isn't that this happens. The wild card is how transparent the coordination gets. Once Reela's baby arrives, the aftershocks widen. The next window will pull in secondary players, the podcast circuit that covers Wack's orbit, the Kick Studio partnerships that pay creators for peak hour deliveries, and the merchandise vendors already stocking Blueface-branded infant apparel per the Complex Source pop-up receipt from June. Watch the vendor list on that pop-up. Half those SKUs get rebranded within 90 days if the DNA lands clean. The failure prediction on this scenario: the Jaden Alexis camp will not stay quiet through a Reela delivery cycle. Expect a public statement from Jaden within 72 hours of Reela's water breaking, aimed less at Reela and more at the coordination itself. By the time this Christmas news cycle rolls in, the residue from yesterday is going to look different than the headline. The baby will still be a baby. The name will still be Junior, but the second child conversation Blueface floated on stream, the 6 weeks line, the BBL request, the concubine line, those weren't jokes. Those were public negotiations about the next child, spoken while the current one was still learning to latch. Don't be surprised if pregnancy number 2 gets announced before Johnathan Jr.'s first Halloween. The pattern is the pattern. Once the dust settles on this delivery, the same stream that hosted it will host the next one. That's the residue, not the child. The engine. Extend that residue 5 years out and the pattern gets more visible, not less. By 2031, Johnathan Jr. is old enough for his own on-camera speaking role. That is the window where the LLC finally shows its purpose. The pattern reads as a slow-motion Kardashian playback. The child who was priced at 1,000 subs at birth becomes the child who anchors a content pillar at kindergarten age. The failure prediction here: any legal guardianship challenge from Karlissa or Jaden will be filed inside that same window, because family court leverage matures at the exact moment the child's earning potential matures. Watch the docket. It'll be quiet until it isn't. And once it hits, the same paper trail we walked through today becomes Exhibit A on someone else's motion. That detail we said would circle back to Nevaeh saying my baby deserves his piece after everything. That's the sentence that closes the loop. She said it while the face reveal sub-counter was still climbing. She said it while the cameras were still rolling. She said it while her partner was still in a robe negotiating BBL timelines on stream. She said it, and she meant it, and she also did not stop the stream. That contradiction is where this story actually lives. Not in the DNA. In that one sentence. Drop where you land in the comments. Is Junior a claim or coverage? Somebody in this comment section worked in labor and delivery. Tell us what a membrane sweep plus castor oil actually looks like from the nurse's side, because Nurse Erin was too professional to say it. Tap the bell. Next case is already in the folder. We out.